Have you ever noticed that you make perfectly logical financial decisions right up until the moment you don't? That you can be super cautious one minute and then a total gambler the next? Well, it turns out there's a Nobel Prize-winning reason for that. And today, we're going to unpack the strange and powerful logic that secretly runs the show when you think about risks, gains, and especially losses.
So to get started, I want you to play along with a quick thought experiment. And look, don't overthink this, okay? Just go with your gut. I'm about to show you two different problems, and for each one, just pick the option that feels right. Ready?
Okay, so in problem one, if you're like most people, you took the sure thing, right? The guaranteed $900. You're being risk-averse. But now look at problem two. This is where it gets weird. Most people do the exact opposite. They choose the gamble, the 90% chance to lose $1,000. All of a sudden, you've become risk-seeking. So what gives? The odds are basically the same, just flipped from a gain to a loss. What is going on in our heads?
Well, to solve this puzzle, we first have to look at the old way economists used to think about these things. A model that, for a really long time, had a huge, massive blind spot.
It was called utility theory. And the main idea was pretty simple. When you make a choice, you only care about your final bank balance. The journey doesn't matter, just the destination. According to this theory, how you got to, say, $1 million is irrelevant. But that just doesn't feel right, does it?
Right. And if utility theory were actually true, your choices in those first two problems would have been consistent. The theory had absolutely no way to explain why just framing something as a gain or a loss completely flips our risk tolerance on its head. This is a classic case of what's called theory-induced blindness, when an idea is so accepted that people literally can't see the obvious flaws staring them in the face. And that's where two psychologists stepped in and completely rewrote the rules, leading to this breakthrough idea that finally explained our weird, contradictory behavior.
So you have Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, and they looked at utility theory and basically realized something that seems so obvious to us now. It's just absurd. I mean, as they pointed out, who among us can even assess our current wealth within tens of thousands of dollars? We just don't make decisions based on our absolute wealth. We make them based on something else entirely.
And they called their new model prospects theory. And its central idea is this: we don't really care about absolute states of wealth. We care about changes from where we are right now. We think in terms of gains and losses. And this added that one crucial missing variable to the whole equation: the reference point. Where you start from completely changes how you feel about where you end up.
So prospect theory is really built on three fundamental features of our minds. Three rules our brains just automatically follow whenever we're weighing our options.
Prospect theory basically boils down to these three key ideas. Our decisions are anchored to a reference point. We experience diminishing sensitivity the further we get from that point. And, this is the most important one, we are powerfully affected by loss aversion. Let's break those down.
Okay, first up, everything is relative to a reference point. The best way to get this is the classic water bowl experiment. If you stick one hand in a bowl of cold water and the other in hot water, and then you plunge both of them into room temperature water, well, that same water will feel hot to one hand and cold to the other. The water's temperature is identical, but your experience of it is completely different. Why? Because your reference point changed. It's the exact same with money. Second, we have what's called diminishing sensitivity. Think about it. The subjective difference between getting $100 and $200 feels pretty big. But the difference between getting $900 and $1,000, it feels a lot smaller, even though it's the exact same $100 jump. It's kind of like turning on a tiny lamp in a pitch-black room. It has a huge impact. But adding that same lamp to a room that's already brightly lit, you barely even notice.
And third, we have loss aversion. And folks, this is the big one. This is the engine that drives prospect theory. For our brains, the pain of losing something is psychologically way more powerful than the pleasure of gaining that exact same thing. And there's a deep evolutionary reason for this, right? Organisms that treated threats as more urgent than opportunities, well, they just had a much better chance of surviving and passing on their genes.
So let's zoom in on this powerful asymmetry, because it explains so much of our economic behavior. I mean, everything from why we cling to losing stocks for way too long, to why negotiating a contract can get so incredibly difficult.
In fact, Kahneman himself said that if prospect theory ever had a flag, this next image is what would be on it. It's the one single graph that captures the entire idea in a single glance.
And here it is. This one graph tells the whole story. You can see it's S-shaped, right? That shows the diminishing sensitivity we talked about, because both curves flatten out at the ends. But the really crucial part is that the two sides are not symmetrical.
Just look at the slope on the left side, in the land of losses. It is so much steeper than the slope for gains. This picture right here is loss aversion. The pain from losing $100 is way greater than the pleasure from gaining it.
Let's make this personal for a second. Imagine I offer you a simple coin toss. Tails, you lose $100. Heads, you win. What is the absolute minimum amount you'd have to win to make that bet feel even remotely worth taking? Is it $101? $150? Just go with your gut.
For most of us, the answer is somewhere around $200. We need the potential gain to be about twice as large as the potential loss, just to make the gamble feel okay. This is called the loss aversion ratio, and for most people, it's somewhere between 1.5 and 2.5. We literally feel the sting of a loss about twice as intensely as the joy of a gain.
So how does this new way of looking at things help us solve that puzzle from the beginning? How does it explain our bizarrely inconsistent choices?
Well, this is what cracks the code. In that first problem, you're choosing between two gains. The fear of ending up with nothing, that's your loss aversion kicking in. It makes the sure thing feel so much better. You become risk-averse. But in the second problem, you're choosing between two losses. And here, diminishing sensitivity takes over. The pain of losing $900 is already really bad, so the extra pain of potentially losing $1,000 doesn't feel that much worse, so you're willing to take a gamble for that chance to lose nothing at all. You become risk-seeking. See? There's no contradiction. It's just two different rules for two different situations.
Now, it's worth pointing out, prospect theory isn't a perfect model of who we are. Of course not. For example, it doesn't really account for that intense feeling of disappointment when you almost win big, or that painful regret when you realize you picked the wrong option. But it gets us remarkably close to the truth.
So the next time you see a friend turn down a great investment because they're just too focused on the tiny chance of losing, you actually have the language for it. You can say they're suffering from extreme loss aversion. It's a really powerful tool for understanding the choices people make, and that includes your own.
And that brings us to the big takeaway. This isn't just some abstract theory in a textbook. This is the operating system for your decisions. Knowing that your brain is hardwired to make losses feel twice as bad as gains are good can help you spot when that instinct is holding you back. So my question for you is, what decision in your finances, your career, your life, are you going to look at differently now?